Good night. This is U.S. Immigration Attorney Sharifa Tharpe. I am here live to take your U.S. immigration related questions. Go ahead, put your questions in the comments so that I may answer your questions. Tonight, I have a great topic for you tonight. So my topic is how can you avoid being denied in your marriage-based green card? Now, keep in mind, there's no way I can predict what's going on in your particular case. And so that is where a personal consultation is going to come in. But there are definite sure shot ways to get denied that I want to tell you about. I want to warn you about these ways so that you understand what you're getting into and you understand how to prepare your case. Now, the number one thing is people underestimate the marriage-based green card process. They think I'm married, I love my spouse, I'm just going to go ahead and file the papers, I'm going to go to the interview, and our love is going to shine through at the interview and we are good to go. And that is not how it is. Unfortunately, it does take a lot of preparation. It does take a lot of coordination to make sure you get the right evidence to submit with your marriage base, because the most important part of a marriage-based application is the type of evidence that you submit, how you submit it. And I'm going to tell you how completely you submit this evidence, and I'm going to explain why I use the word completely. So usually when you submit evidence, and they'll give you a list in the instructions to submit your marriage base. They will put it very simply. We just want to see joint bank statements, maybe joint property, joint lease. And so, you and your spouse go ahead and put that together. And sometimes you don't really understand how detailed your evidence needs to be. And so this is one of the sure shot ways to get a notice of intent to deny. That's basically them warning you that they're about to deny you. If you don't convince them, it's your last chance to convince them that you are in a real marriage, or they will straight up deny you. Now, if you submit a joint bank statement, just submitting one bank statement with the both of your names on it, with like the cover page of the bank statement, is not going to work. It has to be a full bank statement. And usually they're just not looking for the fact that the officer is not just looking to see that you have a joint bank account. It doesn't say much about your marriage. Anybody can go create a bank account together. Two strangers can sit down and agree to go and create a bank account together. And so it says nothing about how real your marriage is. Creating a bank account together could be a part of a business arrangement to make it look like you're married, right? And that's exactly what the officers are looking for. They're looking for signs that your marriage isn't real. And so what they are looking for is a complete bank statement with transactions, with meaningful deposits or significant deposits, with both of you submitting, depositing your money into the bank account, both of you coordinating to pay your expenses out of the account. And so that is what they're looking for. And so time and time again, when I've seen examples, like people come to me for help, I've seen examples of denials issued. It's really because of things like this. So incomplete evidence that doesn't say much about the marriage, right? So it's just it just looks like it's for show, and that can be devastating. So that's where preparation comes in. If you're in a situation where you know you're gonna file a marriage-based permanent resident card, the first thing you should do, permanent resident application, the first thing you need to do is get legal advice. Make sure you're covered. Make sure you understand fully the types of evidence that you need to submit. Another thing is submitting an application. So a lot of people think that you can submit your application with your married pictures, your wedding pictures, and then pictures at different places, and then your marriage certificate, and that's enough. Not enough. That's a sure shot way to get denied. Now, I want to take pause, by the way, to let you know that I'm here to answer your U.S. immigration related questions. I bring a topic to talk about, which I'm talking about now, but that should not stop you from asking your own questions here, because that's my priority to come here, answer your questions while also sharing information with you. So my sister is having difficulty getting a sponsor for the affidavit of support. Her filing is far advanced, but she doesn't know where to turn. Please advise. So that is a tough one. Because what your sister needs to do is definitely schedule a consultation. Make sure that she gets personal legal advice, because I cannot give personal legal advice in this live. However, yes, if your sister doesn't meet or her petitioner does not meet the requirements for the affidavit of support, she could very well be denied on the basis that she's a risk for being a public charge. However, how does she know that her petitioner doesn't qualify? Has she made sure, is her petitioner not working? Are there assets available? Does the petitioner have assets? Does your sister have assets that could make up for the lack of required income? And so in this case, it really comes down to how the advice moving forward, whether there can be an exception here, is going to depend on her particular circumstances. Sometimes there are exceptions to the rule, just depending on the type of application or what's going on. So let your sister should schedule a consultation and get personal legal advice. But yes, if she does not face this issue of a lack of a sponsor, if her petitioner doesn't qualify, then she is at risk for being denied. So that's where she should schedule the consultation, touch base with me. So petitioner is elderly and not working. Yes. So it's all going to depend on, the situation on a whole. I would not be able to advise her directly here, but I can tell you that generally speaking, we would have to evaluate what's going on, whether there are alternative options, whether there are alternative assets that could be used in her situation. So schedule that consultation. Now, I am talking about, so this is gonna sound weird, right? But you're gonna get a lot of value from this. These are the short ways to get denied in your marriage-based green card. That's what I'm talking about. But by telling you this, I'm actually giving you information that can help you to avoid these mistakes. And so the first one that I talked about is, for example, the incomplete evidence that may be submitted. Time and time again, I will get consultations or individuals coming and saying, I submitted a joint bank account. Why are they saying that they don't believe that my marriage is real? We have a joint bank account together. But that having a joint bank account is not a straight up indication that it's a bona fide marriage. What the officer is looking out for is meaningful transactions, a complete bank statement. So not the cover page of your bank statement, but they want to see a complete copy. They want to see if there are 4 pages. They want to see all 4 pages with meaningful transactions showing that you're commingling your funds, that funds are going in and funds are going out and you're using it to pay bills together. That is what would convince an officer that you are a real married couple, that are taking your finances seriously, that you're planning together about your finances. So that's just an example of where you could possibly be giving, you could give, the evidence has potential, but it's incomplete, right? And then I am talking about the lack of evidence. So some people, they get married and they feel like, oh, my love is going to shine throughout the interview. I just need to show a marriage certificate and some pictures. another sure shot way to get denied. You have to show more than that. You have to show, a part of this process is to tell the story, or tell a story about your courtship, your relationship with your spouse. They want to see a timeline. They want to see, based on the evidence, when did you meet? They want to see how often you guys communicated before getting married. They want to see, when did you start living together? They want to see friends and family talk about your relationship and what they know about how you met. So the key for me is, when I am preparing my clients' marriage-based applications, I am essentially a storyteller. I'm not just giving them bits and pieces of the marriage, but I'm telling a full story from beginning to end on how they met, how did the couple meet, how did they, when did they get married, how did they get married, what are they doing together as a married couple, and even what are their aspirations for the future. And I use the evidence to show that. So, phone records showing communications, social media postings, showing your togetherness, showing your announcements together as a married couple, WhatsApp messages back and forth, especially if you live abroad, travel receipts or itineraries showing, where you visited your spouse in another state, or you visited each other in another country, affidavits from friends and family who can, on both sides. So it's nice to have a good mix of both, friends, family, who can tell a story themselves about what they know about the relationship, how did you guys meet, what are their impressions of your relationship, and then at the point where you do get married, when you start to live together. And this is for mostly adjustment of status, because when your spouse is in another country, then you're likely not living together, and so other types of evidence could be used to supplement the fact that you're not living together. That's understandable. However, when you are here, you are in the United States, you're going through adjustment of status, then it's to show that you are living together and evidence that you're living together. It could be mail that's going to the same address. It could be a signed lease with both of your names on it. It could be evidence that you're dividing the utility bills together, or that you are exchanging funds to pay for the utility bills. It could be text messages back and forth. It could be greeting cards from friends and family congratulating you on your union. So all of these come together, all of this evidence comes together, and there could be more evidence. You can be creative with it. Whatever evidence is available to you to show that your marriage is real is going to be useful in this case. But when you are submitting this evidence, you just have to make sure it's complete, and that it is telling the complete story about your relationship and your marriage. What are the chances of a green card holder filing for someone? Green card holders can file for their spouse, their children who are under 21 and unmarried, and their son or daughter who is 21 and up, unmarried. So children, whether they're adults or children, they're minors, or in this case, their children where they're under 21 and unmarried, can, as long as they're unmarried, green card holders can file for their children and their spouses. So the chances are very great that they could file for someone that's very close to them. However, they are only limited to their spouse and their sons or daughters. Can I pay for a consultation tonight? So young gerunds, absolutely. If you go to the link in my bio, you will be able to go to the website, and if you call right now, you will get the scheduling coordinator who can schedule your consultation and provide you the link to pay for your consultation. If you have scheduled already, then you should be able to have the link by email or text, and then you would be able to pay. But if you're having problems, always feel free to call and speak to the scheduling coordinator, and she can help you with your ways to pay for the consultation tonight, if you would like. Can I file for a sibling under any circumstance? So bad weather. Now, you have to be a U.S. citizen, and you have to be over 21 and over to be able to file for your sibling. However, keep in mind that applying for your sibling and then helping them to fix their status if they're already here are two different things. Young gerunds, I'm looking forward to hearing from you, looking forward to speaking with you in a consultation. Now, if your sibling is already here, they're without status, the sibling, U.S. citizen sibling filing for their sibling is taking about a minimum of 14 years right now. So that means that even if your sibling is here, they will not be able to qualify to stay in the U.S. and apply. And furthermore, it would be a very long wait. So it's not a quick and easy solution for them to get their status right. However, if your sibling is already out of the United States and this is the only way they could qualify, then you can absolutely file and wait it out. The both of you just have to be very invested in this process, and just make sure you keep an eye over the years to make sure that you are ready to get up and go once they're ready to process your application. Slims Nickies, I'm looking forward to speaking with you in a consultation. So Natasha, I recommend my friend to you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, and I'm looking forward to assisting your friend. As soon as they call, they should be able to schedule a consultation, and then we can talk. So keep putting those questions in the comments. I'm talking about the short way to get denied in your marriage-based green card application. Hi there, Ricky Flossie. It's nice to see you. Now, when I say that, I am basically giving you I'm giving you all the information you need to avoid these mistakes. Avoid the short ways to get denied in your green card interview. So one is incomplete evidence, right? And I explained the example of the joint bank account. And then there is the lack of evidence, where you give too little evidence. That is definitely a short way to get denied in your marriage-based interview. Showing pictures of your wedding and your marriage certificate is not enough. I can tell you that. And one way to really to figure out how to tell this story, and that's what I do for my clients, is I tell a full story. You have to be a good storyteller, and as an attorney, of course, who advocates for my clients, that's what I am. I'm a good storyteller, and so I tell the story and the timeline of the relationship. That is key here. And so along the timeline of the relationship is you have to find evidence to support when you met. Maybe WhatsApp messages, maybe phone records, when you guys stayed on the phone all night long when you were first met and you were so in love. You probably are still in love, but it was fresh. You guys were on the phone for hours. Then you have the phone records. You may have the phone records to show it. Text messages back and forth. You have the phone records to show the timeline, to show the transition from when you met to how you maintained your relationship. And then the engagement, if you have pictures of your engagement, and then you have family members who can tell about when they learned that you were engaged and how happy they are and how well they know you fit together. And then the wedding, and then after that, how you live together. Where do you live? Do you share any children? What are your routines together? How are you building a life together? What joint property do you have? What money are you trying to save to build, to look forward to your goals in the future? So tell the story of your relationship. And most importantly, though, you must make sure you get legal advice. Because as the attorney for my clients, I make sure to guide them. So I not only just prepare the application, but I'm there every step of the way to advise them, to guide them, to make sure that everything is going as it should. So what is the timeline for spousal green card? You're looking right now, I'm seeing an average of 18 to 24 months. But keep in mind that the timeline is really going to depend on the service center. They can give you an accurate range of time that specific service center is taking. You can go to uscis.gov, and if you scroll down on the homepage, you go to case processing times link. It will take you there where you can choose a service center. You can tell the service center by the first 3 letters in your receipt number. When you find that service center, look up the form. So for example, the I-130 form petition is usually that petition that you use to file, and you can look at the range of time that specific service center is taking. Serenity Stacy, if the supporting evidence was not included in the initial filing, would you be able to provide it later on? So yes, that is another thing, Serenity Stacy. So this is another assumption that is a sure shot way to get denied. So I've spoken to individuals when I do a vetting of their application and I ask them, what have you submitted? They will tell me, well, I just submitted the basic information, the marriage certificate. I figured I could do it later. The mistake here, though, is that by not preparing a good application from the start, is you've already placed yourself at a disadvantage. Because what's going to happen is that the minute that it goes before an officer, they have already developed a very negative viewpoint of your application and your marriage. Because once they see a skeletal application, that means very little evidence, they are skeptical. They are thinking for sure this is a fake marriage, and they are ready for you at the interview. They're really going to be ready for you. They're going to dig in. They're going to separate you. They're going to ask all the hard questions because already they've gotten an incomplete application. And so it is so important, can't stress enough that you must prepare a strong application from the beginning. If you don't have that evidence, if you have a lack of evidence, what I work with my clients to build a strong application before just submitting it. Because guess what? You could submit your application and then you could try to submit supplemental information. It may not get to the file. It may not get to the officer by the time the interview comes. And so you are at a disadvantage walking into that interview. Because you know what? When you go in and then the officer has that hardcore approach towards you, it gets intimidating. And then you start to slip up, and then you start to mess up in your own interview because you are facing an uphill battle with a very hard officer. And that officer is being hard because they have an incomplete application or an application that lacks evidence, and so they are skeptical, and so they are focused on forcing you to prove to them that your marriage is real. So while you can submit evidence afterwards, it is not the best, because there's no guarantee that the supplemental information that you send later on is going to get to the file. Now, sometimes what they will do, Serenity, is they will evaluate your application and they will tell you, they will send a request for evidence before you even get to the interview. And so sometimes they will give you a chance to submit more evidence with a request for evidence. But once you've gotten that request for evidence to submit additional evidence proving that your marriage is real, you are really playing with fire, and you are at a disadvantage already. So do you help with work authorization if company want them to work? The person is an immigrant. So because it depends. So I do employment based. However, it's if the work authorization, you'd have to qualify for it independently, or you'd have to qualify for an employment-based green card or an employment-based visa, temporary visa. And that's going to depend on a whole bunch of factors. What's the immigrant status? Where are they? What are their qualifications? What are the needs of the employer? And in the case that the employer has to be very much involved here as well, if they're going to sponsor the immigrant. And so if you are going to schedule a consultation, the employer needs to be the person that does it, because they're going to be the one that sponsors you, unless you qualify for a employment-based visa or work permit on your own independently. Bank account pictures, they want everything exactly. So Ricky Flossie, they want everything. So when you're talking about bank accounts too, they want a complete picture of your bank account. So not just one flimsy first page of your joint bank statement. They want to see maybe 6 months worth of bank statements, or a full bank statement with meaningful transactions in them. And that's a big mistake that I see people make, and they will tell you they're not going to accept that evidence. So Ricky Flossie, thanks so much. Ricky Flossie says, very wonderful information for people who are married. Yes, I am giving you some gems tonight, okay, for free. So take that and make sure you you listen carefully, because it's very important. So now with this evidence, so now let's talk about the interview, right? So I've talked about preparation, some of the mistakes that are committed during the preparation of the application. But another thing is telling false information, or omitting information, or hiding information. It's get legal advice. So if you really feel like information is going to be damaging to you, stop and get legal advice. If in doubt, don't take a risk. Get legal advice, because making false statements or omitting can lead to devastating immigration consequences that can even mean that you will never be able to get a permanent residence. So can my husband still file for me if he's going to court on a gun charge? So Shan T876, when it comes down to criminal issues, it is very important that you get legal advice. If it still could be possible. It's not necessarily automatically means, it doesn't mean that he can't file for you, but I would have to evaluate what those charges were, who was involved, to determine whether your husband would be banned from applying for you. So for example, if this crime involved a minor, for example, that would definitely could definitely prohibit him from filing for you. But when it comes to criminal issues and consequences, immigration consequences as a result of criminal issues, it really comes down to the nitty-gritty details of what you're going through. So for example, Shanti, he has a gun charge. Sounds like he's still fighting it, so he hasn't been convicted. And furthermore, usually the petitioner would be banned if it was a crime involving a minor. And so it comes down to the facts here. Thanks so much for the information, BJ Pumpkin, you're welcome. The person is in Jamaica, and employer is U.S. citizen, lives in Florida. So Thickas, the employer should definitely give me a call, schedule a consultation. I can definitely guide them through the employment-based process. So let them call me. Yes, there are ways to sponsor an individual who is in Jamaica and they would like to come here on an employment-based visa or green card. What happens if you fail your citizenship interview when you file for citizenship under your 3 years marriage? So if they denied you because you didn't meet the 3-year requirement and there was no misrepresentation or fraud involved, or no wrongdoing, then you could apply when you do become eligible. And keep in mind, Tracy, this is for everyone. This is not personal legal advice. I can't give personal legal advice without knowing all your facts. This is general information that's meant to be to provide you some valuable information to empower you. But if you're really thinking about taking action, you need to schedule a consultation. How long does work authorization visa take, or perm? So the perm, which is the employment-based green card, it depends on what type, right? Because there are different categories just depending on the qualifications of the immigrant. But you could be looking at 6 months to 18 months, just depending on whether there's a labor certification involved. With the work authorization, so work authorization is more like a work permit. They would have to be in the United States to get the work permit, but they could apply for an employment-based visa. That could be a matter of months, but it depends on whether there's a cap involved, or what are the deadlines to apply, whether there's a quota that they have to meet. And so that's where the consultation is going to be very important to determine what fits and then how to move forward based on what fits. So Ricky Flossie says, do the consultation, people, it's worth it. I agree. It is worth your time and money, and it helps you to avoid mistakes, that some of the mistakes which I listed here, mistakes that can be devastating. So hi ma'am, is there any chance to apply for work permit visa, as my brother is US citizen, lives in America? You wouldn't be able to qualify for a work permit just based on your brother being a US citizen. You would have to qualify in another way. Right now it's taking about 14 years for siblings who are US citizens who are 21 and up to apply for their sibling. If a citizen files for a sibling and the sibling is married and gets divorced before the green card comes through, can the spouse still get a green card? And how does this divorce affect the process? No. So the spouse would not be able to get permanent residence if they're divorced at the time that they are going through the process. So if they're divorced, they no longer qualify because they're no longer their spouse, and so they get taken off of the application. So great questions so far. I loved all your questions. I am going to touch on that one other issue. So I talked about lack of evidence, incomplete evidence, the importance of preparation, the importance of storytelling, of telling the story about telling the story of your relationship. That's very important. And I talked about the importance of avoiding omitting information and misrepresentation or lying. Anything that's a lie or omission is going to be considered misrepresentation or fraud. And sometimes you don't, in some cases, people do this and they didn't have to do it. So for example, somebody may think by disclosing that they have a child that's going to affect their application, so they don't put their children on their application. Or for example, if you are really looking far ahead, if you're applying for your visitor's visa, you fail to disclose you have a child because somehow you think that's going to affect you getting a visa. Then you come up here and then you end up applying for a marriage-based green card. Now it's time for you to disclose your children. Guess what? You are stuck in a cycle of lies, because if you're going to keep this thing going, you put that you don't have a child on your marriage base. Guess what? They have ways of finding these things out. They will find out and you will be charged with misrepresentation. Or if you even do the marriage base and now you disclose that your child is, you have a child, but then they can look back at your visa application and see that you did not disclose you had a child. This could possibly lead to charges of misrepresentation or fraud to get an immigration benefit. So that's an example of things you shouldn't do and things that may not even affect you negatively. Get legal advice. When in doubt, when scared to disclose information, just get legal advice to find out how it can affect you, if it can affect you at all. So let's see, where can I find the number? So young gerunds, my number is all over my video. So if you go to the feed, or you can go to the link in my bio, the number is at the top of the website, and it says speak to attorney now. So it's at the top of the website on every page of the website. So that is one way that you can find the number. And also I'll say it here. So it's 561-405-4889. And you can go ahead, call and schedule. If you miss it though, the number is all over my videos, all over my website. So the cost of the consultation is $150 for up to an hour. It is worth your time and money because I really delve into detail. I make sure that you walk out knowing what you qualify for, what you are, what you're in for, what to expect, how to avoid the mistakes, whether there are better options for you, and you can walk out with me as your attorney should you need that. So, and thanks again, Ricky Flossie. I appreciate that. So that is, let's go on to the interview, right? What to expect at the interview, and how can you avoid short ways to get a denial. And so the next is not preparing for the interview. Many many individuals, they're married, they've been with their spouse, they take it for granted. They just think we're gonna go in there and we are gonna kill it, right? Because we've been married, we love each other, it's just gonna shine through. And unfortunately, taking that the how difficult the interview can be for granted is a big mistake. Because when you go into that interview, sometimes they get into detail. They really dig deep, things that you may not even have talked about yourselves. So start talking to each other. Make sure you talk about your past, your past. Make sure you touch base about different issues that you're concerned about. For example, they can even ask questions about your plans to have children. Have you as a married couple talked about that? What do you plan to do as a married couple? Do you want to have children? How many children do you want to have? So yes, make sure you are on the same page. Make sure that you understand each other. Make sure you are in tune with your daily routine. Sometimes you don't even think about it, but the officer can ask even those questions. Which side of the bed do you sleep on? What is the color of your curtains in your room? What's the color of the curtains in your living room? They can ask even questions about your medical history. So they can ask questions about your in-laws. They can ask questions about how many people were at your wedding. They can ask questions about your friends. They can ask questions about your children. They can ask such detailed questions. And yes, getting just one question in where the both of you are inconsistent can convince the officer that this is not a real marriage. So evidence at the beginning of the relationship, of the filing the application, is important. So is preparation. What I do for my clients when I prep them for the interview is I send them a list of all the most common questions that could be asked. I sit down with them in a meeting and we talk about it. I tell them what to expect. I tell them these that the officer may not be nice. Hopefully you get a nice officers. I have had great experiences with my clients with officers, but a part of that is we go in prepared, and the officer is happy because they have a good solid application before them, and so the officer doesn't have a need to put up a wall. So I've had very good experiences with officers. However, they can be tough when they are already skeptical about your relationship. And so I also prepare my clients for those hard questions or those difficult situations, especially when there are issues. So sometimes there are messy issues in the relationship. Sometimes there's a child born outside of the marriage. You know, maybe that was a bump in the marriage and you guys are back on track, but you have to also make sure that these are things that you know how to tackle when the officer asks about them. So the interview, prepare for it. Be on the same page with your spouse. Now is not the time, or the interview is not the time. I understand you're human. I understand you're in a marriage, and sometimes you guys may not be getting along. But at that point is not the time to be malicing each other or not talking. And you know what? Also, here's another piece of advice. Don't go in being perfect. The officer isn't looking for perfect. The officer is looking for a real married couple. And so, yes, there are going to be tensions, but the officer wants to see realness, right? So there's that balance, you know, be real, but be prepared, be on the same page with each other going into that interview, and know your application. Know what's in your application. The officer is going to go, some officers go line by line through your application to make sure that you know everything that's in your application, that you're consistent, that both of you are consistent with the information that you've provided. They may ask you questions about something that's off that they know, because remember, they run background checks. So they also maybe know information about you that you may not even realize they know. So it's very important for you to have accurate information in your application and to review your application together with your spouse. The both of you have to sit down, go through that application line by line to make sure that you both know your parents, your in-laws, your children, each other's children if you have stepchildren, your past addresses. Make sure you know things in your past. If there's a criminal issue, don't hide it. Make sure that you understand how to explain what happened. And that's what my job is. So it can be stressful, but that's why I'm here. I'm here to help my clients from the beginning of the process to the end of the process, and to help them to get through their sticky situations, to help them to make for a smoother process. And so I take away a lot of the stress. Even though I know it's your life, it's your future, that's what makes me even a stronger advocate for you through this process. So that's all I have for you tonight. Ricky Flossie said, very great topic. I agree. This is, I am throwing gems at you, so make sure you're taking notes. I'm gonna post this. I'm going to post this live here so you can watch it on the replay. But keep in mind that I'm not giving you personal legal advice. This is general information. And so if there's something you're concerned about, if you want to make sure you avoid these mistakes, call, schedule a consultation, and let's talk about your situation. So Ricky Flossie says, I remember leaving USCIS in Miami. The officer was eyeballing me and ex-wife. Leaving interview, we left holding hands. Yes, exactly. And so even in the midst of the officer scrutinizing you, you have to make sure you hold steady and be a unit together as a couple. So yeah, they're gonna be, the officer will watch you walk straight out the door to make sure that you are as real as they come. So no SSN or EAD card before the interview. How can I prove marriage with documents or bills? So I have my clients, we find ways. I mean, you can be added to the lease. So there's a joint lease. I mean, it really, you Lisa, it comes down to what's going on in your particular situation. And it comes down to your personal story as a couple, right? If you have absolutely no evidence, zip evidence that you are a married couple, then I would really have to even wonder if you're a married couple. That's what the officer is. I'm saying there are things, oh, if you are a real married couple in a real relationship, you're going to have evidence, right? And a part of it is being creative. Yes, when you're here without your SSN, without an work authorization, yes, it can be hard, but that's not telling the story. A social security number or a work permit is not telling the story about your marriage. That has nothing to do with your marriage. It is in other ways, the relationship between the both of you. Phone records, pretty sure you have a phone. Social media, if you're on social media, you're probably sharing that with your spouse. Your friends and family see you every day. If you're a real married couple, you are sharing time with your friends and family. Those things are telling the story about your marriage. Not necessarily just an EAD or an SSN. So that is where it's very important also, you Lisa, to get legal advice. Because the information and the list of or examples of evidence is not, it's not an exclusive list. I mean, you can be creative with it, and that's why what I am there for with my clients is to think creatively as well, to brainstorm, especially when you're in a situation where you may be at the beginning of your relationship and you may not have a lot to work on. We definitely work together to make sure we still prepare a good application and we put the right evidence together. All right, so that's it from me tonight. I really dished it out. I hope I gave you all some good information. I know I did. It's just, I hope you got notes. I'm going to put this on a replay. So if you're watching this on the replay, I know you got some good tea tonight. I will be back tomorrow as usual. So what you can do is join me tomorrow at around 9:30 to ask your questions. I'll come with another topic. You can also schedule a consultation. And thanks so much. Thanks for the love. I appreciate it. You can also schedule your consultation. The information I'm giving you is very general. It is not personalized legal advice. So if you have more questions, if you're in a situation where you're like, wow, I am at a loss of what I can do in my situation, it's time to schedule that consultation. And get legal advice. You can't go wrong there. You can only make sure you are protected, that you get the advice you need to avoid these mistakes. Thanks so much for the blessings. Thanks for the diamonds and the love. I appreciate it greatly. I will see you tomorrow, or I'll speak with you in a consultation. Go to the link in my bio if you'd like to schedule a consultation, and we can talk in detail there. Have a good night, everyone. And young Gerans, great. I'm looking forward to speaking with you soon. All right. Have a good night.